guys, welcome back to episode 10. Wow, we're first episode with double digits. I'm Allie, the host of this podcast. Today I'm sitting down with one of Dana's friends, Adell, Kitty's grandmother, Kitty herself, and one of my own friends, Sophie. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
My name is Adell, and I'm just a friend of Dana. We've known each other for years, since we were little kids. I don't really think too much about, gender identity and all that. For a while I was going by, non-binary, but at the moment I'm just kind of me. You can call me any pronoun. I'm just Adell. Oh, and I identify as bisexual for anyone who's curious.
I'm Paula. I'm Kitty's grandmother, and I am heterosexual and a widow.
Yeah. I'm Kitty. I'm sure y'all remember me. I'm the arrow ace non-binary creature that just kind of exists.
Oh, yes.
And rambles endlessly.
Yes.
Hi everyone, my name's Sophie. I'm a friend of Allie's. I do identify as cisgender, but I'm back to the old questions about everything from how I present and how I want to present. I also identify as panromantic, but I'm thinking that I may change my label back to just lesbian again because I realized I can never love a man as much as I love a woman. And I also identify as demisexual.
For everyone here, except for Kitty, because this doesn't apply for the most part. How old were you when you first felt sexual attraction?
This is a hard one because it's kind of hard to judge what that would be, because I remember being really young and having crushes on cartoon characters and thinking they're cute, but I never thought about anything sexual until I was 15 years old or something, which I think is a little bit late, at least from what I've heard from friends and just generally in high school.
What would you say the typical age is? Because I was thinking 12, 13-ish.
I don't know, honestly. Even being someone who has these feelings, I feel it's always been super confusing whether people are serious or they're just trying to be edgy or what.
So even the aloes don't know. Oh no.
I've always been a little bit confused. People have been talking about, people in high school, middle school, they love talking about sex, it's no secret, but who knows if they actually have those feelings or if they're old enough to feel them, you know what I mean?
Some of it is I think to do with the hormones of puberty kicking in and doing their thing. It seems that at the minimum, the first inklings of sexual attraction seem to kick in when puberty starts chugging along real good.
Yeah, and it's probably easier to recognize for some.
You remember that? The first time you were oh, I need a piece of that.
I was born in 1945, so things were a lot different back then.
For sure.
But I was probably 12 or 13 when I decided that I really liked some of the cute guys.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
The only problem is I was very skinny, and I was about 5'7" and weighed 95 pounds, so I was not very, very attractive.
Aww.
Yeah, when all of us, at least in this lineup, me, Mom, and Graham, we all were tall, gangly, awkward kids for quite a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, everyone's got a different body.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm curious for people who are allosexual if there's a difference between if there was a conscious moment when you realized that sexual attraction is a thing and then the first time you felt it, because awareness versus it actually being applicable to you. I'm curious what your experience with that was.
Well, for me, I remember, I never really wanted to have sex until, I had a boyfriend that I really liked. And then, I don't know, he kind of, I guess, brought it up with me. And it took me, a few months of, thinking about it to realize, I think this is something I want. And then by the time I kind of realized that, he was already, kind of broken up with me. So that's what happened for me.
What a douche.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is in high school.
Impatient butthole.
Yeah, I guess. It's hard being 15 and he is a bit older than me too, so he'd probably been more in touch with that.
Yeah, still.
It was tough. It definitely kind of knocked me for a few months. I'm sure you guys know what I mean.
Yeah, rejection is never nice.
Yeah.
In any arena.
Yeah, for sure. Friends or anything.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you're young.
Yeah, no, because your hormones are all crazy, so...
It was crazy.
Whereas a more mature person where everything is kind of settled and, the body's trucking along doing what it's supposed to do, they might kind of take it in stride and be like, ooh, okay, well that sucked anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you're a teenager and your hormones are going crazy and your brain's doing what the heck it's doing, anything even remotely negative feels like the world is ending.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to get out of that hole. You just think it's your everything.
Yeah.
And I guess,
Oh, yeah.
like, when you have sexual feelings, it can, like, get even more frustrating, because, like, there's this new thing, this new aspect of your life, and it's kind of, like, forcing you to change the way you think about people, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's how I felt a little bit.
I feel like I've never been that dramatic about breakups things, so to speak.
That's good.
But I
To
get
be
called,
fair,
like,
we're wired a little different.
yeah, I get called nonchalant and stuff a lot, so maybe that's a part of it, but
Yeah, everyone's different.
Yeah.
yeah, life goes on.
For sure.
Yeah.
If we're talking too about, like, you know, when you're young and you're a teenager and there's this new thing that you're unfamiliar with. In school too, like, technically in 5th grade we got a starter version of sex ed, but
Oh,
even
yeah.
when we got to high
Oh.
school, it didn't actually get inclusive. It didn't really tell you anything about
No.
what's going on or how to, you know, handle those feelings. It didn't talk about consent, or it didn't talk about different types of sex or people who may not even feel it at all.
Mhm.
So I think
I
it's another.
don't think my health classes talked about sex at all.
Yeah. Oh, God.
No.
I know
Oh,
in
when?
particular here in the United States, our sex education in, like, public schools especially is woefully
Really
lacking.
bad.
Oh, yeah.
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 I mean,
Like, they barely cover the basics of, like, 'cause when I was in the 5th grade and we had sex ed day, they literally took all the boys into one classroom, had all the girls in another one.
Yeah, same for me.
We watched a videotape about the guys and, like,
Oh.
how their shit works.
Really?
They apparently had to watch a video, like,
It was the
and
opposite for me.
literally all this tape really covered was, well, I think we had to watch both of them.
Oh,
Like, I think after both groups had to watch both. I don't know why they separated
Yeah, I
us,
don't like the
but
separation. I think it's putting people behind.
literally
Yeah.
the one for the guys, literally all this stupid, badly acted video covered was like morning erections, wet dreams,
Wow.
oh, yeah.
and that was it.
Uh-huh.
Those are some random things.
The one for girls, of course, covered, like, your period,
Yeah, that's the main
Yeah.
thing.
and that was it. There was no actual discussion there was nothing that was actually about, like, sex and how it works, and we never got that. Welcome to the Bible Belt.
Yeah, Kitty, because we're from, like, the same area.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's different, because, like, we're down south more.
I imagine it was very different when you were in school, Graham.
Well, when I was in school, you didn't even say the word sex.
Yeah.
It was
Welcome to the
just
50s.
Yeah, wait, welcome to the 50s. It was just something that wasn't discussed. But I had a very intelligent mother that talked to, I had an older sister and a younger brother at the time.
Mhm.
And Mom was very honest about things, that sex was normal,
That's good.
to have desire for another person was normal. She just made us promise that we wouldn't indulge in it until we had graduated from high school.
Oh, yeah.
That was a theme in our family.
Oh, yeah.
She had you, Grandma Edith had you promise her that.
Right.
You had Mom promise you that.
Right.
And she had me do that, which for me, when Mom said that at like 12, she was like, promise me you won't have sex until you're like 18. I was like, okay.
Yeah, easy promise to make.
It was not a struggle. It was not a struggle.
It's just that sex is so very difficult when you're young. It's exciting, it's fun,
It's
but
taboo.
you can't. But you don't have the maturity to be able to handle the repercussions from it.
Yeah.
So,
Unwanted pregnancies or
unwanted.
STDs.
Oh,
See, this is it.
Yeah.
The unwanted pregnancies or the STDs or. So it just. Also, high school is very difficult when you've got the raging hormones and you're exposed to all these other
That's
boys and
intense.
girls. It's very intense. So if you throw sex into the mix, then it's even more so.
Especially when you take into account that kids are bastards. And, say you're in a relationship with Robbie and you and Robbie do the deed. And then Robbie,
Oh my
for whatever reason,
fucking
decides, Robbie decides for whatever reason he's not interested anymore, and when he goes to school after breaking up with you, he runs his mouth to every motherfucker he can find. And then you're the school slut.
Yeah. And even if you don't have sex, people say that stuff.
Well, that's the thing about it. Boys and girls look at sex very differently.
Oh, yes.
Most of the time. Not everybody, but most of the time they look at it differently.
Most of the time for women, it's more of an emotional connection than the physical thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas with guys, it's literally just, it feels good, let's do it's more the physical side. They're not really as much in touch with the emotional part of it.
Well, and when they're young...
I mean, some definitely can be. I'm talking about, like, the average.
Yeah, of course. And when you're...
Also, like, the stereotype?
Yeah,
that's important, I think.
Yeah,
you know?
That too, yeah.
Yeah, that's sure not really fair.
There are probably more guys than not that do also, have some pretty significant and emotional attachment to the act itself, even if they don't want to admit it, because society has kind of drilled into their heads that men aren't emotional. Which is the dumbest thing in the world.
I don't know.
True.
Toxic masculinity.
It is.
Yeah, 100%. Sophie, I know that you're kind of north, so was your sex education any different, or was it any better? I guess based off of region.
I think I got lucky with my teacher because she didn't necessarily specify when we were talking about, for example, ways to have sex. She didn't necessarily gender it. She just talked about different ways, and she did go over different types of protection, not just for
heterosexuals.
How old were you?
Everyone was required to take a health class in their sophomore year of high school, so...
Oh, that's different than what it is here. That's so different.
Yeah. We don't use those, sophomore terms in Canada, so I don't really know what they mean.
10th grade.
Okay.
My bad. So that would be about 16 or 17. Because in my state, it is required to have... Yeah. It's required to have at least a physical education class, so for us that meant one of those semesters had to be a health class. And we did have a sex ed unit, so I got lucky and I had a pretty good teacher. But yeah, it definitely was not as inclusive. Someone in my, someone 1 year younger than me actually tried to start a project to have a more inclusive sex ed, and it didn't end up going all the way through because the administration was really tough. But we did have a couple of PE staff who were very supportive in wanting to learn about different identities, different ways of using protection, talking in a different lens about consent, and things like that.
Oh, yeah. Health class does not cover consent as a topic at all.
No, health class does not.
Oh, man.
Pretty much everything I learned as far as sex, how it works, how to and whatnot, I learned from my mother. And if I remember correctly, when she was in high school, sex ed wasn't too much, middle school, high school, whichever it was. Her sex ed class wasn't super great either. And there again, grandma was just like, I got you.
Yeah, I told her she'd like it.
Well, no, you busted out the health books, just like she did.
In the 80s, when Kitty's mom was probably in school, there was, home ec and that sort of thing. So, they designed... And that was, only for girls. So there were classes that were, only for girls, and there was, shop class, wood shop class only for boys. So there was a lot more, tension, I imagine.
Well, I know at least at my high school and at my middle school, it didn't matter what gender you were. If you wanted to take home ec, you could. If you wanted to take shop class, you could.
I think that changed.
I know... In middle school, though, our home economics class, we learned how to cook pancakes on day 1. 6 months later, she taught us how to cook something else. And the rest of the time, she subjected us daily to the sound of music. What? And I don't care if I ever see that musical again.
What a waste of time.
Oh my gosh.
I hate that movie so much. Oh my god.
I've watched that movie a good amount of times. Oh man.
Every day for an entire semester. I hate that movie.
Oh god.
Anyway.
That's ridiculous.
The thing about sex education is that older people, for some unknown reason, don't want to share the good parts of it. They just want to harp on the bad parts of it so that you don't get involved with somebody that way, which is stupid.
Yeah. It's once they get to be a certain age, all knowledge of what it was like to be a teenager just flies out of their head. And they completely don't remember that the more you make something taboo and forbidden, the more likely the teenagers are gonna do it.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
in my case, Mom and Graham never made it a taboo mystery thing. It was like, this is this, that is that.
I think it is ideal if the parent teaches the kid, but not all parents are open to that, I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
my thing with that, though, is like, well, I mean, you obviously did the thing at least once, because you brought a child into the world, and you part of your responsibility as a parent is to teach your child about the world.
Yeah.
For a pretty good percentage of people, sex is going to be part of their lives in some capacity or another.
Yeah.
oh, very much so.
Almost
Even for aces, even for aces and aromantics, it's in movies, on TV, in even in music.
And also supporting your friends.
You know, exactly. Or, you know, you have people like me who blindly stumbled around in the forest of sexuality without realizing that there was a path with a sign that said asexual. It took me 30 years to find that offshoot. I'm quite happy now, but, you know, I've been engaged 4 times, married none, because they never worked out. Go figure. But, you know, for like 20 plus years of my life, sex was the thing I had to deal with.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks that you had to put up with that.
Thankfully, I'm not a sex repulsed asexual. I'm kind of sex neutral or sex positive.
Okay.
Well, I'm sex positive for other people. I'm like, heck yeah, if it makes you happy and you ain't hurt nobody, you do you. Have all the fun you want. For myself, it was always just a case of, okay, well, yeah, I guess it's nice, but so's reading a book.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it was nice, but it wasn't, for me, it wasn't any better than anything else that I enjoyed doing. It was a thing I could take or leave. So I got to a certain age, figured my stuff out, and was like, yeah, no, I'm good. No more for me, thanks.
I was married 3 times.
Oh.
Yeah. The first 2 were losers, unfortunately.
Yeah, honey, can I tell them?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Thank you. When you were born in 1945, the only thing you could look forward to was getting married and having babies. You know, it hadn't had the big splurge of women in the
being
workforce, in the workforce and all.
Women's liberation.
And you were encouraged to do that early on, right? Like at a really young age.
Well, no, Mom and Dad never pushed us to do the things that was the norm because we were
they
kind
didn't
of
care.
What was the age norm in that time period?
18 or 19. Yeah, when you graduated high school, you got married and had children. So, you know. But by the time I was in high school, things had started changing and you could go to college before you got married and had babies. But I was always very interested in the males and
you wanted a baby
and
really
I wanted,
badly.
Exactly. That was the one thing I wanted was a large family.
My Aunt Kathy is only 7 years older than my mom. So my great-grandma got pregnant very late. She thought she was in menopause. She was all happy. She went to the doctor and went, I'm in menopause. He said, call it what you want, lady, you're pregnant. She punched him, and then she went home and punched Grandpa Paul.
Yeah, she was 45 when she had my little sister.
Wow.
I was 12. I was 12, and my older sister was 16.
Oh.
My mother was so embarrassed about being pregnant that she stayed in the house for her pregnancy.
But
yeah, well, see, that was
3 other kids though, and at the time, my great grandfather was the sheriff of the small town and county that they lived in.
Oh yes,
and Grandma Edith was the matron at the jail. So she would like cook for the prisoners and do things like that.
Right.
So Grandma took care of Aunt Kathy a lot.
Oh yeah.
Like she'd get home from school and she'd go skipping in the house and be like, I'll take the baby now so you can rest. She loved it. So by the time you were like what, 19 when
19.
you and Grandpa Jim got together?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And she has flatly admitted the only reason she bothered with Grandpa Jim was she wanted a baby.
I've heard that from a lot of people, yeah. They didn't want marriage, they just wanted the kid. And they end up getting divorced.
Yeah, well,
unfortunately,
Grandpa Jim's family and her family got together and was like, well, no, since you have a baby, you have to get married.
Yeah.
It didn't last long because my Grandpa Jim is kind of a schmuck.
Yeah, kind of a schmuck.
And then you got with Les, and Les was
A schmuck.
special. He was also a schmuck. He really liked his drugs and being kind of a lazy layabout.
That sounds shitty.
And then she met Grandpa Ken.
We were together for 40 years.
He asked you to marry him, what, three or four times, and you kept telling him no?
Oh, yeah, because I didn't want to get married again.
And then finally she caved and said yes. And for the majority of my childhood, if you asked him why they got married, he would look at you and go, "She told me I was pregnant." It was hilarious, but...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I've covered like one question. It's taken half an hour.
Yeah,
You're good. Like I told you, you underestimate Grandma and I's ability to expound upon and ramble.
Oh Lord. Dana gets on my case about like saying that probably not gonna fill up an hour.
She just came to check the
where
time.
Yeah, that sounds like her. Anyway, moving on.
Adell, before you felt sexual attraction, did you ever think that you were ace? Did you even know about like that as a concept?
I had no idea. I didn't know about asexuality.
Okay.
It
Not
was
applicable.
like, I didn't even know I was bisexual. For some reason, I just thought I have to be straight. Even though, like, I was obviously also attracted to women, I, like, didn't understand it. Because, like, my mom was, like, really not open to talking about this sort of thing, so I really only knew it from... I didn't know anything, honestly, because school barely taught you anything, and I wasn't that type of kid to watch, like, YouTube or, like, adult TV. I was always, like, watching age-appropriate stuff, so I had no idea, really. So I was, like, in the dark.
Oh.
Okay.
It was just, like...
That's so sad.
Very...
It is kind of, yeah.
And I had to do it on my own, I guess.
Well, see, that's one of the problems that you have when the adults aren't willing to talk about sex. Yeah. It is very frustrating because they just leave the kids hanging, and that's where you end up with so many problems.
Yeah, you have, boys learning about, like, what they think sex is supposed to be or what's normal from pornography, which is not at all.
No, definitely not.
It's, theatricalized and dramatic and over-the-top performance.
And it's also very focused on the physical, right? There's no emotional connection in porn. Every now and then you can find like softcore pornography that's less about the physical and more about telling a story. But most porn that guys are gonna go looking for is like, lady orders a pizza, asks for extra sausage. When the pizza guy gets there, she's like, "Did you bring me that extra sausage?" Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Joke. "I got a tip for you here." Ooh. Like, honest to God, that's a thing that happens in or my mom's favorite example. "Oh, I need to go to the pharmacy to get a toothbrush. While I'm here, I might as well blow the pharmacist." What?
It doesn't make... Most porn is just not at all realistic.
No way.
And it's just...
Like, if you tried that in real life, you would get arrested.
I had an ex... Well, yeah, the pharmacy thing. Yeah, you definitely would. But I had an ex... Apparently he had at one point, he lived in Nevada for a time. He had apparently taken part in like an amateur porn video.
Okay.
I remember him asking me if I wanted to see it, and I was like, "Why would you think I'd want to see that?"
Oh my God.
Why would I want to watch my significant other getting it on with somebody else in a video? No, dude, what the heck?
If you also want to tie it back to being kind of men being trained to not be emotional, when I was first looking at porn, because I was curious, I didn't really get this whole sexual attraction thing, so I was kind of like, well, maybe this will make me like feel it, like I didn't really know what to do. But so much of it was focused on treating women like objects and like degrading,
it always made me
humiliating and then hurting them. So I don't know if it's my gender studies brain going wild, but I think that's also a very telling factor of both a reflection of how men are taught to act, but then also another influence in turn.
Yeah. He definitely had this like notion engraved in his brain that anytime sex was occurring, try to make it as much like a porn video as possible. And I was just like, dude, stop. Number one, this does not need to go on for 2 hours. Are you insane?
I would have enjoyed it.
No, you wouldn't have. He was not good at it.
Oh, he wasn't good at it. Oh, okay.
No. Because, like I said, I've had partners. And I had 2 other partners before him. I had been in 2 other long-term relationships before him. This dude.
He was a weirdo.
Yes.
He was very well endowed, but he didn't know what he was doing with it. He wielded it like a weapon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
He broke my futon.
What?
I My grandma's laughing. I had a futon with, like, instead of wood slats, it was metal slats.
Oh, okay.
He literally basically jumped up and down on me for 2 hours, and he broke the metal slats on the futon.
Oh, yeah. Well.
Oh.
I was just like, bro.
That's impressive and worrisome.
Yeah.
Mostly worrisome.
Like, he was one of those people that, like, in his brain, he had to change positions every 30 frickin' seconds.
Oh.
So he'd find one where it was actually working and it felt decent. And I was like, cool, great. And then he'd move and I'm like, I'm gonna fucking murder you in your
the same
sleep.
thing happens to me, honestly.
Anyway.
Oh my
It was terrible.
Well, it's over.
Yes, thankfully it's been over for a long time. He also was just not a nice person. He was borderline narcissistic and abusive in a lot of ways. So he was not a good partner. And yeah, I still have some mild hang-ups from dealing with his insanity and stupidity.
Sounds like a waste of energy.
Yeah, he was. Thankfully, his family was originally from Canada, and he moved back to the area that his family is from, so I don't have to worry about running into him in public anymore.
Small victories. As a bit of a follow-up to that question, which... Does anyone remember that question anymore? I don't think anyone does. We've gotten so sidetracked.
Did you ever consider that you were ace?
Me? Did I ever?
That's the last question, I think.
I feel like I didn't even answer it.
I think no. Your answer was
you did.
no. You didn't because you didn't know what it was.
You did. Your answer was no. I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive Grandma didn't know what asexual was.
There's no way.
Because when I when I figured it out and wandered out into the living room and was like, so hey, there's a label for me. I'm an asexual. You're like, what does that mean? What is that?
Yeah.
So I had to explain it to her. She was like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. You do you. As long as you're happy, I don't care.
And then Sophie, since you're Demi, is a little bit of a variant on this question. Did you ever identify as ace before, like, changing that label to gray/Demi? Like, what age roughly did, like, the identification as ace happen, and then changing it to Demi/gray?
Well, it kind of goes back to when I first came out to myself, when I first realized that I wasn't just heterosexual. That was at the very beginning of sophomore year. I had actually been going to my school's Gender Sexuality Alliance the year before, and I had no idea then. I just thought I was, being supportive. I was like, I don't really know anything about being not straight, but I mean, my friend is part of the LGBT plus community, so I just went to support him.
That's good.
But eventually, to make a long series event very short, I came to a very sudden realization that, you know what, I think I can relate to some of the things that we've been talking about. So my whole world is very much turned upside down because there were no leading signs. There wasn't any crush that I was like, oh, what if this is not what I've been taught to feel? It was very much when I was out and I was with someone, it was a very sudden realization of, oh my goodness, the way this person is making me feel is how I've been taught to feel about boys, but this person's not a boy. Ooh. So when I had that realization, at the beginning of sophomore year, I was like, I need to take a step back and reconsider everything. It was very, very kind of whiplash.
Very abrupt and sudden.
Mm-hmm. But one of those labels, because I was like, well, I guess I can't say I'm heterosexual anymore, so I guess I'll say I'm homoromantic, but what about the sexual aspect? Because I had never felt any type of desire or attraction. The only time I had heard of the term asexual was when my friend who had invited me to the Gender Sexuality Alliance told me that was one of his labels, and I was like, oh wow, okay, that sounds cool, I guess, but I don't really see how it could apply to me. I just thought it was something nice that someone else had. I didn't really think that I could even claim that identity. But once that, world-shaking event happened, I was like, I don't think I can say that I'm just, what society thinks. So I had first identified as asexual, but as I went on and I spent more time in the community as someone who was like aware that it could apply to them, I found out the term gray asexual, which I kind of go on and off from between demisexual, because even though I can't always define when or what I feel, I think what asexual mostly means to me, what that's really important to me, is that I don't feel the same intensity or frequency or degree of sexual attraction as what's seen as typical. So even if I can't necessarily say for certain this label fits me, it's more like a way to separate how I feel from what society tells you to feel, if that makes sense.
It's just a way to, like, take control
sense.
of your sexuality and just, like, you know, understand it in your own head.
Yeah, and then also when I came out too, there was a lot of internalized homophobia, because even though my family was pretty much accepting, and I obviously had a few friends who were part of the LGBT plus community, I think part of me was afraid. Like, for example, in the locker room, after I came out as lesbian, even though I didn't tell everyone immediately, I got really scared that people would think that I was a creep. So I felt like, at least at the beginning, I just immediately, when I said I'm gay, I was like, but I'm asexual too. And it's the but for me. It's the kind of hesitation. It's like, yes, I changed my label, and I'm not what you think I am. You might hate me, but I'm not that much of a creep. So at the very beginning, it was definitely not necessarily an act of claiming, but more of a, like, defense, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Does anyone else felt like that?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. But when you're talking about the locker rooms, honestly, that's bringing, like, these memories I have in my head. I remember feeling so uncomfortable in the girls' locker room. Because, like, they would divide them. And, like, I don't know. I'm attracted to, like, both girls and guys, so I always felt, like, really flustered, I guess, being with all these girls, and I would just change in the bathroom stall. That was fucking weird. I remember that.
Is that society has made people feel so guilty about their feelings.
Yeah.
Your feelings are your feelings. You can't help your feelings.
I remember when Mo came out, my friend Mo, she originally said she was bisexual, and then I guess she, like, further figured her stuff out, because maybe a month or two later, she came to me and she was like, I haven't told anybody else in the neighborhood, which is significant because this was my grandmother's neighborhood. I only visited on the weekends for, like, a week or two at a time in the summer.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody else in our friend group lived in the same neighborhood with her. She went to the same school with them, saw them every day, and she had waited, hadn't told them anything, waited for me to show up to tell me. So, you remember I said I was bi? Well, I'm not. I'm just a lesbian. I was like, yeah, Momo, honey, no offense, but that is painfully obvious to anyone with eyeballs. You dress like a dude, you wear your hair like a dude, you've never expressed an interest in any male personage ever, but you do double takes at attractive women. Yeah, this is not a newsflash to me.
Oh, yeah.
My mom and my grandma, there again, when she told them, there again, they were like, yeah, honey, we know. We been done knew.
Ooh, yeah.
But the other girls in the neighborhood, they were, for whatever reason, they were fine with the idea of her being bisexual. Well, except Jamie. Jamie didn't really have any reaction to it because Jamie's mom was also a lesbian. But the two other girls that lived in the neighborhood, they got really weird with Mo for quite a while. Because there's this ridiculous stereotype with, like, lesbians and gay men that if you're female and one of your friends it tells you they're a lesbian, they must be attracted to you.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Angry noises. I have stories.
Yeah, it's so dumb. I remember Kim specifically said something to her about it. Like, she called Kim out on, like, why are you being so weird and standoffish? Well, it's because you're a lesbian. Yeah, and?
So rude.
She was like, well, yeah, but I don't like you like that. And she was like, what the hell makes you think I like you like that? Just because you're a woman and I'm a lesbian does not mean I'm attracted to you.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean I don't have standards.
The irony of this story is that Kim is now also a lesbian.
Repressed homosexuality. Ooh.
Yeah, and but it was just like, I remember Mo was just kind of dumbfounded. I was like, Kim, you say you like guys, right? She was like, yeah. I was like, do you want to jump on every single guy you see?
There you go, yeah.
No.
Well, no, some of them aren't attractive. I was like, there you go.
Ding, ding, ding.
Even if someone is, physically attractive, nice looking or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be attracted to them.
Yeah, and there's self-control, too.
Just because
Yes.
you're a woman and Momo happens to like women does not mean that she has a crush on you or an attraction to you. I highly doubt she's attracted to any of us in this friend group.
Yeah.
And then for a while, because Mo and I were so close, they tried to almost make like a joke out of it that like we had a crush on each other or we were dating or something, and
That's not nice.
it made Mo so mad, and it made me mad on her behalf because I was like, y'all are assholes.
Yeah, it's kind of a jerk move.
You're basically using her sexuality as the brunt of a joke.
Yeah, like she didn't have enough problems.
Yeah, Mo did not have a good childhood
Aw.
at all.
Are you still friends?
Oh, yes.
Good.
Yes. She's got a lovely wife now.
Aw, that's so
Dana's
nice.
her wife's name is also Dana. She's an absolute sweetheart, but Mo, she's since been officially diagnosed with schizophrenia and put on the medication for it. Her mom and her stepdad were
Bastards.
absolutely terrible to her. Poor Mo, she didn't have the best time growing up, and yeah, having your friends basically make a joke out of your sexuality because you're closer to one friend in the group than the others.
Yeah.
Because she's like because I happened to be the only one that didn't
fun of her.
Non-judgmental.
I didn't judge her for her hang-ups or the thing. I just kind of was like, oh, okay, that is what that is, and here we go, we'll work with it. She had the one weekend I showed up, she had not slept all week. She was chugging coffee and no-dos like it was going out of style.
Oh.
The other girls in the group thought, because Mo and I both had kind of weird, eccentric senses of humor, particularly as teenagers. We still do, but it was, wacky teenager stuff. So everybody else in our friend group thought that she was just being, typical weird Mo. No, she was having a full-on, schizophrenic episode. She was so jumpy and so paranoid and she was terrified to go to sleep. And finally I asked her, I was like, Mo, what is going on? What's up? Why haven't you slept? Why are you throwing so much caffeine at your system? She said, I can't go to sleep because the little green men in the bushes are going to come out and they'll eat my toes. She fully thought they were there too. And the way I snapped her out of that was the most bizarre. I still can't understand how or why this sentence worked, but it did. I said, well, Mo, you know how to fix that, right? Take off your socks. What? If you're not wearing socks, you don't have feet. Problem solved. And that worked.
What?
It's become a personal in-joke between her and I now, many years later, because it was so freaking ridiculous. But
it worked. Well,
rather than laughing at her or making fun of her for it, I was just like, let me see if I can fix this. Random inane bullcrap. Oh, that worked. Cool. Now she'll go to sleep.
Did it take her a while to get diagnosed?
Yeah, her mom would take her to a doctor to get a diagnosis for whatever. She got diagnosed as bipolar a couple of times. She did get diagnosed one other time with schizophrenia. I can't remember the other one they diagnosed her with, but her mom would take her in to get diagnosed and then never take her back to get her on any kind of meds or anything.
What a bitch.
Oh, her mother's a piece of work.
Mo, there's so much ridiculous nonsense that gets leveled at lesbians and gay men where I can kind of understand why you kind of used asexuality as a shield against reproach or being attacked for oh, well, if you're a lesbian then it must be, this thing or that thing. It was just kind of yes, I like girls, however.
Yeah.
Because, well, especially with other teenagers are assholes.
It's kind of one of the things that I've always objected to with the older generation. They're always spouting the platitudes. Be all you can be the best that you can. And then when the kids come up to them and say, this is what I am and this is what I want, oh, you can't do that.
Yeah.
We tried real hard not to do that to my daughter or my granddaughter.
No, you didn't.
So
the only restrictions that were really put on me, as far as I remember, with the way I expressed myself, was I was not going to dress like a music video hoe. Like the other girls in your neighborhood liked to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I didn't mind that that restriction because I didn't want to wear crop tops and booty shorts anyway.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Like, now that I'm in my 30s, I have crop tops that I wear with high-waisted jeans and whatnot, but
That's cool.
at like 12 to 14 years old, I was like,
young.
I don't want to dress like a hip-hop video chick.
I don't get why girls want to do that.
I don't know.
But, you know, to each
There
their
again,
own.
hormones and whatnot going crazy. They want to be attractive for the boys.
I don't know if it's entirely that, though, because I feel like a lot of girls that age are not in touch with their sexual feelings.
Right.
Or they're not, like, it's more of an unconscious thing. Some of it I think is, you know, it's what they see portrayed
Yes.
in various forms of media as being attractive
definitely a
and
factor.
sexy and confident and all of those things. They want to emulate that, so they want to wear the very revealing, scanty clothing and whatnot like that, so that they can be attractive and confident.
I think there's something
whatnot.
to be said for doing it for yourself, though, because
Oh yeah.
I definitely, in high school, I wore some stuff that I don't think I would be brave enough to wear now. Like, I would layer fishnets under, like, even shorts, and then put on socks that went over my knees over it. And while
wow.
I got older,
Same kid.
and then I learned to be afraid because, you know, as a person of color who is and will be fetishized by people for what I wear,
Yeah.
I kind of am more scared now. But I think when I was younger, it was almost like a kind of an in-your-face thing, and privately, also because I was asexual, it was like, I'm gonna wear this thing that's seen as supposedly sexual, but it's not for me. It's like I'm reclaiming it. And the way I would dress, too, is definitely not typical. I think I spent a pretty good amount of time in LGBT plus spaces as well, where a lot of people would be very creative with their clothing.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said
Oh,
for
yes.
dressing to be not necessarily attractive, but as a statement and a reclamation of things. And then also to purposefully, even if you're using, like, you know, being more explicit, I think it makes for a more positive environment, one where it's more accepting, where it's not an expectation to be more explicit, but
Yeah.
you're given the space to
Yeah.
be like that and know that you're not going to be fetishized or looked at in a strange way.
Dress
for
for
it.
yourself, not for others people's enjoyment.
Yeah, you're talking to somebody who fell face first into the goth subculture at 15 and has never come back out. So I know all about wearing weird stuff that's kind of a statement.
Oh, yeah.
We got terribly sidetracked.
Yeah.
Trying to move things along a little bit. What was it like when, like, you first felt sexual attraction, and what was your reaction to it? And did it match with descriptions that you've heard of what it's supposed to feel like?
I remember just having thoughts, I guess, and it was specifically about, like, my boyfriend. It was not about, like, boys as a whole. It was just, like, him, because I liked him a lot. And I felt like it was quite a bit different, because it wasn't about, like, his body or anything. It was just about him, you know, because I liked him.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I started being more in touch with my body, so I became more attracted to, like, that aspect. But in the beginning, it was strictly, like, I guess my hormones telling me this is something I want, and just being really into this person. So it was a lot different than what I saw in media.
Yeah, that's not surprising to me at all.
Yeah.
In my case, it was always, how did they smell in their eyes when you'd look in their eyes?
Did you have any, like, reaction to, I guess, like, the development of such feelings? Like,
I feel like I got really, like, depressed, kind of.
what?
Because it was like, I never felt this before, and now I'm feeling it, and it was just like, and again, like, my boyfriend broke up with me, so it was just, like, super confusing and intense, and I was like, oh my god, I don't want to be here.
Okay, so, like, situationally.
Really, it was situationally for me, so it's a bit different for other people, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
like,
Lisette actually told me somehow or another we got on this subject in just one of our usual conversations, and she brought up the first time, like, her body responded to an attractive male was it was in, like, a movie or a TV show they were watching, and she was like, what the heck, and she, like, freaked out and, like, ran out of the room and went to find her mom and was like, Mom, what the hell is going on? And Samantha was like, yeah, no, honey, that's normal, it's fine, the world is not ending. Because
that's interesting.
media portrays it as one thing, and media doesn't really have a decent way, without being, like, gross about it,
Yeah.
to, like,
Yeah.
to encompass the physical reaction that comes with everything else.
Everybody's different too.
Yeah,
everybody has different like preferences, and that's not portrayed accurately, I don't think.
No, it isn't.
No.
Which has always like rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, it's always like it's one reaction, and if you don't fit into it, then
there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Yes. It's always like
You're
one
broken.
type as well. Like women should like the tall, strong man, and then the men should like the shorter, petite
chiseled
women.
jawline.
Yes, and that's like absolutely not my type at all. Like I do not find those types of men attractive at all. So it's like kind of the opposite for me, and it always made me feel like I don't know, just out of place.
It's very ostracizing.
I've always liked how my granddaughter Kitty is. The outside package isn't what interests her.
Nope.
It's the inside.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of the same way.
It's a good way
I
to
look
be.
into their eyes and then I can feel a connection or not. And that's what I go with is what are they? You know, not what the package is.
Yeah.
My first serious partner was like 300 pounds. He's a nice guy. We're actually still friends.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's still one of my close friends. We just didn't work out as a romantic thing because I'm not wired for that. But yeah, it didn't matter so much to me what his outside looked like. He was a nice dude.
Sophie, you want to answer the question?
I mean, because I feel like my life's kind of separated into before I realized I was not straight and then after. I think the before part was pretty simple. It was just mostly crushing from afar. I never really made any moves or confessed to anyone, although looking back, I'm sure it was painfully obvious. But after I realized I identified as a lesbian, I think the only time that I really felt like I could understand why people would feel sexual attraction was when I was in a long-term relationship in high school. I was 17. That was the first time I had been physical with anyone, not just, crushing on someone from afar or flirting with someone, but it was an established relationship. We were definitely very close. Like, we had said I love you, all those things. I think that was partly when I started to think that I might be demisexual too, because when I was with them, despite all of the internalized struggles I had with my identity, despite feeling like my identity wasn't valid, despite feeling like some kind of shame around being sexual, whether that was from the media or from myself or lack of self-confidence, I think, at least for me, when I was really close with someone, I felt like, even though it wasn't the stereotypical media sense, I could understand why people valued that type of connection. And part of me was thrown off because people have different definitions of what they count as sex.
Yeah,
but
that is weird.
I think,
yeah,
given that we did get very, very close personally, although it did teach me that I can see why people value this, and I do value it too, I realized ultimately it was because of the person themselves. Like, we could have not done it at all, and I would have been perfectly happy. I was okay with doing it with them because that was one of the ways they saw intimacy, but for me, intimacy has pretty much always been about the person.
Yeah. Sounds pretty much like my experience with dating and being in relationships.
Similar to my experience. Like, we're all kind of in the same boat of, like, the person is first, and then all the other stuff is after.
Yeah, I would still say I maintain my asexual identity, though, because I didn't think about sex any other time. I didn't have any desire, I didn't feel any need to, see other people in that way,
to pursue it actively.
Yeah, and whether, I still don't really know. I probably have some repressed trauma I need to work through or something.
Yeah, you never
and then
know.
stuff later happened in my life that made me question a lot more.
Yeah.
But I would say the first time I actually felt that would definitely be in an intimate relationship. But outside of that, anything else would pretty much be irrelevant.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. I think this is going to be our last question. What is your opinion on someone who's quite young labeling themselves as ace?
I mean, it depends how young.
Oh, I have 12 written down in my notes, but
that's what I had in my head.
Yeah, roughly that age, maybe a little bit younger.
I mean, obviously, I don't think badly of it, but don't be too confident is all I'm saying. Be open to changing it.
Yeah, I think if someone prepubescent came to me and was like, I'm asexual, I'd be like, okay, sweetie.
Yeah, okay,
sure.
sweetie. Just
Don't be surprised if when you get older that changes, and that's okay. But if you want to say you're asexual right now, you go right ahead and do that. It'd be like, sure, you do you, kid.
Because I feel like a lot of little kids have like the idea of kissing's disgusting, and
Yeah,
for them that would
Yeah.
obviously be even worse.
Exactly. So if they know what asexual is and they're still in that ew cootie space,
Yeah.
and they come to me and tell me they think they're asexual, I'll be like, sure, honey. You go right ahead and run with that. It's not gonna. It's not damaging to them.
Yeah.
In one sense of the word, it's not like it's gonna screw them up forever. Because when it comes to like the labels we put on ourselves,
Well, that's one of the problems with labels. But like Kitty was saying, just let them know that they can.
you can change that later if
Exactly.
it turns out that actually that label doesn't fit you as well as you thought it did.
Yeah.
Well,
There are some people who seem to have this weird notion that once you pick a label for your sexuality or your gender identity, that's it, and that's it, you're stuck with it forever. Now that you have it, that's all you can ever be. And it's like, no.
You can change every week if you want.
People change as they go through their experiences in life.
You change your socks and underwear every day. Why not change your sexuality as you grow? No, seriously. As you mature, things are going to change. So if you're 12 and you feel asexual, cool.
Okay, you do you.
You know? And be open to the changes and how you feel.
Yeah, it's all about self-discovery.
I mean, there are like micro labels of like ace flux or whatever, which is by definition it changes.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's also really powerful to be able to put a name onto something that is largely told that's not acceptable, to realize enough that you're feeling something different and you're going to take that plunge to try to figure out more about it. Because labels, even though they can change and they're not for everyone, they can still help you find other people who are feeling the same thing, and that can be very empowering.
Exactly.
To
Right.
not
Yeah.
operate within the heterosexual cisgender society, to find that community for yourself.
I think it's also good to ask yourself those questions. Like, you could say, am I asexual? Am
Definitely.
I bisexual? Am I pansexual? Just think about these things.
Yeah.
And just think, maybe I'm not.
But
not assume from the start that you're cisgender heterosexual. Kind of take a step back and look at it holistically.
So many people have that in their brain from their parents, from media, and it's can be hard to break it unless you ask those questions and you're being introspective.
Yeah, I think this habit parents have, or just random people sometimes even have, of telling kids, oh, you're too young to know that you're ace or bi or pan or gay or whatever it is. If it's anything other than straight, you'll have some idiot pop off and go, you're too young to know that you're that. No, they're really not.
No.
Number one. And number two, so what if it's not an accurate label in the long run?
Right.
That's what they feel right now.
Yes.
Let them have it. Don't be an asshole. So many things in the world that are issues could be solved by just don't be an asshole. Like racism, classism, sexism, discrimination in all its forms and flavors could be solved by just don't be an asshole.
Yeah, pretty much.
But people are people and people are assholes sometimes, so alas.
The thing that I say to some individuals when they're giving me their opinion when it wasn't unprompted is opinions are like buttholes. Everyone has one. Some people are one.
Going back to if someone was really young who wanted to identify as asexual too, I think I would even go so far as to be encouraging to them. Not as much as, I understand, but it may change. I would be like, wow, at this age, I personally didn't even know that was possible, that it was a thing. Hopefully, as the years go on, it will be more acceptable. So I would even go so far as to be like, that's really great that you've found out about this, thought about that. I'm here to talk about it more. I would encourage, I wouldn't want to push my own thoughts, but
I think we're on the way to getting more open about that stuff. And maybe the next future generations will be more in touch with that sort of thing, and there'll be less stigma, which is really cool.
That's the one thing that I hate, is the stigma attached to anything. It's just not right.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening. If you would like to see behind the scenes stuff or be a guest on this podcast, you can get in touch with us on Instagram at knightsofknope and Reddit /knightsofknope. You can also email us at acasualexchange@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you guys. Send us any comments, concerns, or questions. That's all from us today, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. A Casual Exchange was created by the Knights of Nope. Producing and editing credits go to Dana. This podcast is hosted by Allie. Music credits are in the description.